Although I didn't think about, or I mean, I didn't say this yet, but I think the most important thing when you're running HDR or when you're setting gamma for a game,
through the vent.
I think I used to say, with setting up gamma in games, I used to say that one of the most important things was that you don't have blowout in the bright spots and you do not have loss of detail on the darkest spots, so you don't have black level crush happening. I used to say that those two things were important, like, so that neither one of the extremes is happening. But I think, honestly, the more I have seen both the HDR conversion on, like, through, like, stream, for example, in these games that I played, as well as, you know, my own experiences looking visually, like, at a collection of the vast majority of scenes in most games, in bright scenes, daylight scenes, inside scenes, dark scenes. I think, honestly, the most important thing about HDR or setting up gamma is to make sure that you don't have
entering the code.
washed out details in, like, daytime scenes. And you have... You want to make sure that you don't have, like, washing out of the mid-grays, you know? I think that is, honestly, more important, to be honest. Because if that happens, then, you know, HDR conversion, for example, or, you know, it might appear like there's a lot more blooming, or the game is a lot more washed out, or maybe the contrast between the dark and the brightest spots on the screen is, like, not as apparent, and the image as a whole looks less impressive because of that. You know? I think that is probably more important as well. And that is unfortunately something that I started doing a lot more only after, like... When did I set it up like that last time? Actually, even with Clair Obscur, I was not setting the scenes up like that. Because in Clair Obscur, I was still setting up my gamma in the way of find, like, a bright spot in a scene, like with the sunlight, for example, and a dark scene. That's always a good way to do it, you know, one of good ways, but it doesn't paint the whole picture, you know? Because the washing out of the midtones is something that can happen very easily if you set it incorrectly. And in something like Clair Obscur, when I played that game, I had the midtones too bright the entire playthrough. So, particularly, actually, well, also for me, but because of the game's excessive blooming as well in that game, it made it harder for me to deduce if it was washed out or not, because the blooming was so apparent everywhere, you know? Because the game's got so much goddamn bloom and fog everywhere, you know? So it made it even harder to know if it was, like, washing out the midtones or not. But it only, like, I only noticed it much later when I was looking at the HDR image of the game, or looking at, like, auto HDR. I noticed that, you know, the way that it's supposed to look and the way that I had it, you know? So, yeah, it's every game after that, and every game that I have currently on my catalog, I have set the midtone contrast correct now at this time, so there's not gonna be any washed out looking, like, images in daytime scenes, and, like, you know, the HDR conversion is not gonna look too washed out in, like, many of the, you know, brighter daytime scenes, for example, or, you know. Although, is it perfect like this? No. I mean, I already said, like, before. Look at this, for example. If we do HDR analysis here, look at these tones right here. Like, this doesn't look as bad as in that previous room, of course. But if I increase this, say, and, okay, now there's black level rays. You can see this white line here. That's a black level rays. But, like, if we go down here, like, this is still not where it's correct. It's roughly, like, somewhere here, maybe, for this particular scene where this would be correct. But for that other scene, if I had it 51, there would be black level crush. So, like, you kind of have to eyeball it, you know, with many of these games, or with any of these games. You just, like, you can trust the software to calculate this correct, but, like, at the same time, if you do not use your own eyes and test several different areas, like, it's just impossible to, like, set HDR nowadays, or, like, the gamma level, like, correctly, and have it looking correct in every area, you know? For example, this shadow setting that I have right now, it looks exactly correct in, like, brighter daytime scenes. It looks like exactly the right amount of, like, brightness in like the dark scenes. But then like some of these like darkest scenes, like in Aldes and obviously war areas, it looks here like some areas are a little bit too dark. At least for me it does. And the graph also reflects this, you know. But if I had, say, like something like an OLED and I didn't have the studio lights and I only had the lights behind the monitor, which is what I've tried to do anyway. You know, these lights here are behind the monitor, but, you know, IPS glow, and then, you know, I have some light from the ceiling lamps as well, but it's quite dim. I have set it intentionally like that, so it would refract from both the walls, because I have white, what is that? Not fucking... What is this word? Tapetti. I have white walls, of course, so they reflect light surprising amount as well, which is actually very surprising because of how far that is, you know? Like, I have literally dimmed / taken off the lights from my ceiling fan towards the back of the room, exactly for this reason, because the light refracted so much from the white... Okay, what is this in English? I literally never use this word in English. Like, hello? Tapetti. Fucking hell. I should know this. But, like, the thing is, when you don't, like, when you don't use any words in this context, or in this substance, it's very easy to not remember the words, because you use them so goddamn infrequently. Like, what is the last time when I used this word in English? Like, I would say probably... I don't think I've ever had a conversation with this word. Wallpaper? That's not wallpaper. Hanging paper, maybe. Really? Doesn't seem right. Wallpaper? You call that wallpaper? Okay. Well, hanging paper, or hanging... I don't know. Wallpaper, let's call it wallpaper, sure. Yeah, because it's white, it reflects a good amount of light as well, and that was also making the IPS glow, or the glow from the screen, worse. And then I also have this black cloth also custom cut on this table that is also fucking white, by the way, because, yeah, unfortunate on that one as well. They all, like, obviously reflect light, and I made it as, you know, as easy as possible on the eyes, but, you know, the one thing I cannot get rid of without, you know, spending more money, obviously, or risking burning on the monitor is I don't have an OLED, you know? The per pixel dimming is something that is very much necessary if you want to enjoy perfect blacks and don't lose detail. Because right now, even on this scene, if you are looking at this scene right now on, like, YouTube or, like, Twitch, looking at this, you know, speech that I'm doing here, if you're looking at this with an OLED, this probably looks, even with like Windows Auto HDR on the scene with correct gamma fix, this probably looks exactly correct, and you see all the details very nicely here, even on like the walls here, despite of how dark it is. Like, I can faintly see like some of the worst spots, you know? Like, for example, this here, like this part of this, you know, wall pillar here, or whatever that is, like, I can very faintly make out any detail on that, because the IPS glow from this point of view is too bad on that black spot, you know? But, like, you know, if I set up the monitor in a way where there is a black level race to counteract the fact that I have IPS glow on the monitor, then the daytime scenes are gonna look too washed out, or can look too washed out. So, like, the real solution to this is to have an OLED. Because if you set up a black level race, then the, you know, the midtones are gonna be washed out, or, you know, there's not gonna be you're not gonna get as much out of the HDR, because without perfect blacks on as the base level, you get less DCI-P3 and BT 2020 color space, or Rec 2020. So there's also that. You get less HDR colors as well if you don't have the black floor set correct. So that's another thing. So it's not, you are not just missing like the correct black level and contrast also. It's kind of problematic.